In 2010, the Koreans greatly surprised the automotive world by releasing several models that look radically different from their popular predecessors. Thanks to the series, which received an overall index of 9, Hyundai, if not becoming a trendsetter in auto fashion, then at least earned an award for the will to win and determination. Usually, the change of generations is accompanied by some continuity in appearance. However, if we put Tucson and 935 side by side, then the only thing they have in common is the shape of the wheels and the nameplate of the brand. It should be noted that this did not prevent the novelty from gaining enough popularity and not disgrace the excellent selling predecessor. With some reservations, we can say that the reliability of the 935 is not inferior to the Tucson. There are not many reservations, however. After the craze for the timing belt drive, automakers took, in the words of the classic of scientific communism, 2 steps back. All Hyundai 935 engines have a good old chain in the timing drive. And this is good. After all, both the chain and the drive are somewhat different from those that were in vogue 30 years ago. Quiet, reliable, and only need to be replaced every 100,000 kilometers. All this costs, however, more than the previous samples, but, say, the chain itself can be found for 600 rubles, and the tensioner shoe for 200. 3 engines were installed on the 935, and they are all 2-liter. Powerful diesel, 136 liters width, and 184 L width, and gasoline, 150 liters width. No one particularly complains about the reliability of power units. Both petrol and diesel versions are bought equally willingly. Of the features, the need for periodic flushing of the fuel system of a gasoline engine can be noted. It is useful to do this once a year. In addition, owners are surprised to note that fuel consumption can significantly exceed factory data. In the city, 15 liters of AI and 95 per 100 kilometers is not too much. Diesel engines behave decently, not going beyond the 12-liter mark. In general, for engines with a displacement of 2.0 liters, these are not the best indicators of efficiency. All motors are quite quiet, but the fuel pump is unexpectedly noisy. There is no need to be afraid of this. Noise is not a sign of imminent dying, but a feature of work. The most annoying owner of the Hyundai 935 is the suspension. The first tapping occurs already by 50,000 kilometers. Suspension 935, as usual with crossovers, is completely independent, McPherson in front, multi-link in the back. Structurally, it is similar to the one that was in the Tucson, and at the same time to the one used on the i40 sedan. It does not differ in special softness, but you cannot call it furious either. But the suspension travel is small, and with active driving on bad roads, hitting the bump stops becomes familiar. Next, the shock absorbers begin to knock, then the anthers and bumpers of the struts fly off, and at the end of the cacophony, the bones of the stabilizer are added. At the service, these knocks are not always recognized as a warranty case or even explained as a feature of the model. Much, of course, depends on the driving style and the condition of the roads. Replacing shock absorbers and stabilizer bushings, fixing anthers and bump stops do not help for long, especially if you jump over speed bumps without slowing down. Spare parts are not too expensive. Front shock absorber anthers will cost several hundred rubles per pair, rear ones a little less, but not less than 400. Actually, the front struts cost from 5 to 7,000 per pair. The rear ones are a little cheaper. By the way, the shock absorbers offered at the services from the manufacturer may not be of the best quality and characteristics. If you value comfort and handling, splurge on something more impressive, even if only on Kony. In 2010, the Hyundai 935 attracted buyers not only with its revolutionary design for the brand, but also with a very good interior. It's about the configuration and about the finishing materials. The interior of the top versions is especially rich. All the necessary options are present and work without failures. Without a fly in the ointment, however, it could not do here either. Bigger people complain that the stuffing of the seats is not resistant enough and crumbles at the points of contact with the metal frame already in the second year of operation. The leather of the upholstery of the steering wheel and the handle of the selector box turned out to be not very high quality. Or rather, its quality varies from batch to batch. There were cases when it was necessary to completely change the skin on the steering wheel that had peeled off by 30,000 kilometers. Fortunately, leather trim is not very much. An unpleasant discovery for the owner can be the mournful songs of the cabin with the onset of the first frosts. The seats creak, the box between them, something deep in the instrument panel, door panels. It is not always possible to find sources of annoying sound. However, the creak can suddenly disappear. The main thing when choosing a Hyundai 935 is to avoid black cars. Not only does it hide the bizarre curves of the body, but also all the scratches will be visible. And the paintwork of the Korean crossover is scratched easily, even too much. No one has seen rusty cars yet, but chips to the ground can be found in almost everyone. Another unpleasant tradition is the poor closing of doors. Moreover, not only the very fact of poor closing is depressing, but also the sound with which this happens. Therefore, you should develop the habit of slamming the doors, hard, but gently, as the well-known comedy says. But the strength of the plastic deserves, if not 5, then certainly a positive assessment. In addition, the prices for body kit parts from third-party manufacturers are low. Say, the rear bumper can be found for 9,000 rubles. With metal, everything is not so cloudless, but not catastrophic either. The front fender costs from 2,500 rubles, and the right one is cheaper than the left one. The hood is about 13,000, the driver's door is 17,000, the right front is a little over 20,000, the fifth door is about 22,000 rubles. Formally, the 935 is a crossover, off-road vehicle, but its off-road features are severely limited by developed overhangs and low ground clearance. The declared 175mm were formed only after last year's restyling. Before that there was 170mm under the front suspension beam. Four-wheel drive, of course, helps out, but not always. The engine air intake is located under the edge of the hood, in fact, in front of the radiator, and when driving in a snowstorm, it can become so clogged with snow that the engine loses traction. Otherwise, Hyundai can be called an all-weather car. In the same snow, he is able to hit a 30-centimeter gauge on virgin soil. But it's better not to go deeper. Have pity on both the car and yourself. Renault Sandero iGeneration. An unpretentious workhorse with archaic units is one of the most sought-after models on the resale. And why? Technically, this is Logan's twin, except for the body shape and wheelbase. It is shorter by 39mm. The sedan has a more spacious trunk. The hatchback has better transformation possibilities. Produced at the Optifromos plant in Moscow. The stepway variation has increased ground clearance, under load, 175 instead of 155mm for the usual Sandero, other shock absorbers, springs and transmission parts, decorative elements and a set of options. Engines. 8-valve engines 1.4, K7J, 75 horsepower, and 1.6, K7M, 84 horsepower, are the closest relatives. The 16-valve 1.6, K4M, 102 horsepower, is the result of a deep processing of the K7M. It has hydraulic valve clearance compensators. The timing drive of all motors requires attention every 60,000 kilometers, together with the belt. It is better to change the tension roller and the water pump at the same time. It usually lives a little longer. Thermostat gasket leaks and ignition coil failures are common. As for the K4M engines, there was a recall campaign. Dealers replaced the crankshaft damper pulleys. All motors are capable of traveling over 300,000 kilometers without much intervention. Transmission. Engines 1.4 relied on a mechanical 5-speed JH1. Engines 1.6, JH3. It has a different clutch housing. The stepway version was equipped with JR5 mechanics. Its main differences from JH3 are cable control and hydraulic clutch. The difference in designs is small. All boxes are hardy and can withstand up to 300,000 kilometers. The 4-speed automatic DP2, a product of the DP0 upgrade, which has a poor reputation, only works with a 16-valve engine. Weak points, solenoids, valve body, pressure sensor. He likes clean oil. It is better to reduce the factory recommendation of 60,000 kilometers to 30 to 40,000, especially for used cars, does not accept slippage, and is prone to overheating. Regular flushing of the heat exchanger is desirable. With care, it serves 200,000 kilometers. Miscellaneous. On a run of under 100,000, the front suspension usually needs to be taken care of. By this time, the wear of ball bearings and silent blocks, wheel bearings, and sometimes shock absorbers affects. On versions with power steering, after 40 to 50,000 kilometers, tie rod ends are handed over. On cars with a mileage above hundreds, the wiring of the steering column switches is often frayed, causing various glitches and failures. The knocking sound from the rear when going over bumps comes from the brake force regulator rod. Grease helps, or the handbrake cable. When selecting a used car, check the outer boot of the gearbox and the boot, aka oil seal, of the left drive shaft.